Rudy Morales from Las Vegas came in. Didn't know if you were going to be able to make it, but through social media, I saw that you were going to be fighting next Monday. Yeah, man. So it's just cool that it worked out. It's cool that you were able to make it here today. So tell everyone who you are. I interviewed you. I think it was 3 years ago at Syndicate in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, did you have any pro fights at that point?
I think I was getting ready to do my pro debut.
Yeah,
If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so it was cool. And again, a lot of people would have said, why are you talking to amateur fighters? Or why are you talking to guys that don't have any fights yet? Or, why there were so many guys there that day, too. I think Chael Sonnen was there. And I mean, there were probably 50 fighters. But what I tell everyone is, man, I want to know who fighters are. I want to know every fighter. Like, you have a very interesting story. So, like, it was awesome that you shared it. And you went pretty deep, and it's inspiring when someone. I think it's when anyone shares their story with you, it's powerful. And then on top of that, just your belief in yourself was pretty amazing, man. And I forgot about that, but then I got to experience it today because you came in here and did yoga with us. And then after that, one of the first things you did was tell Anthony some stuff about his yoga. That really made his day. It had a big impact on him because even though I've told him some of those same things that you've told him, you told him with so much conviction. He didn't know you, so I thought that was really cool.
So, what do you think that made the difference of the so many things that I told Anthony?
Well, it was just hearing. Well, let's tell everyone what happened. Okay, so Rudy came in today. He was staying in LA. I saw him at the fights last night. It's the week before his fight. And with fighters, man, I never know. Like, I usually don't care to talk to fighters the week before their fight because who knows where their mind is. I don't want to throw them off or whatever. I just want to give space. But I threw it out there. I asked if you could come in, if you would do yoga with us. Like, what did you need today? I was like, we could either do jits, we could hit mitts, or we could do yoga. I think yoga's awesome. I tell everyone, especially Anthony's form of it, I was like, yeah, it's gonna help your jiu-jitsu. It's gonna help your fighting. It's gonna help. I tell all my friends, like, it's just gonna help everything overall, just well-being, posture, being able to touch your toes again. But with fighters, you never know. Some guys, they need to be active. They feel like yoga, the stigma is that yoga is for chicks, But I guess, had you done yoga before?
Mark, I've tried yoga before or hot Pilates.
Mm-hmm.
For me, since I'm not an expert, I consider hot Pilates to be yoga or some sort of yoga.
Yeah, that's what I.
But it's good. But I had the opportunity to be in the same yoga class as UFC Hall of Famer, a legend in the sport, Forrest Griffin.
Oh, hi.
So he was one of the first individuals who kind of guide me towards that way.
So you were able to see him doing it, and you're like, oh,
yeah,
well, if he's doing it, why not give it a shot?
He's so big. It was amazing to look at an individual of his size and his caliber to be able to start getting more flexible and being able to work on his breathing. So that's one of the good things that I don't know if to address him as coach or instructor Anthony. He's got it locked down. That's why he's got yoga locked down, and I liked his energy, his vibe, and I truly believe that he's a world-class instructor. And I know I'm not that old, but I've been around the game now enough to had experience, different coaches or instructors or teachers from all different sorts of life and skill levels. And Anthony definitely has the it factor.
See, that's cool, and that's what I believe too, and that's what I told him. And he had this dream, he has the dream of being that guy that can go be flown to places and where he's there specifically for their camp, and how good that is, and he has that. But that coming from me or from someone, or even from a loved one or whatever, I think it's very difficult to believe in ourselves. With Anthony, lots of times he would ask me, like, he wouldn't know how I would take the class. And I think, I think it's just the confidence in our own ability. And so many of us lack that, man. Like, I suffered my entire life with that. It's hard to believe in ourselves, and who knows why. Like, one of my things was I'm a perfectionist. I found that later on in life so I was never going to be good enough for myself. Once I realized that, that helped a lot. That I was putting these expectations on myself. I didn't even know they were there, but like, if I was never going to be smart enough, I was never going to be good enough. All these beliefs, I really believed those things, subconsciously, and that's hard to break. So, talk a little bit about. Oh, and then so what I saw you give Anthony though, I saw it go on, and like when I heard you say it, I was like, that's awesome, because now he's getting this. He's getting it from someone who doesn't have to say anything nice to him. You could just said, "Oh, it was a cool class," or whatever else. But no, man, he believed everything you told him, and that's awesome to that you would share that, because you could have just said you didn't have to say anything to him. You could have been like, "Oh, thanks for the class."
Yeah.
But so someone, and I think that's one of the things I really like about you, is that you do see the other stuff and the positive stuff in other people, and you're like, yeah, man, believe in yourself. So why is that important to you? And talk about, tell a little bit about your story. Like,
so, I'll tell you a little about my story, but just focusing right now with Anthony. The reason why I've learned and I've become the individual that I am now is because I believe that those around me play a big influential role in my life. And then if there's certain people that I meet and I like them, I want us to, both of us or everybody, to vibrate at the same level. And if I see the virtues and if I see the God-given talents that they have, all I gotta do is it's like you're turning on a switch that they forgot to turn on. The switch is there, so I switch it on. So now the machine is performing at its highest optimal level, and then in the long run, that's gonna benefit me, because when I'm low in energy, in one way or another, then I'll be able to. And it's not that I do it to become a emotional vampire, but it's just that now everybody's like, I connect my energy to you, and now it's just like this monstrous power of energy is just flowing, and then you could accomplish a lot more. It's like with a car, it's like that added horsepower. You already have a strong car, but then now you add a little turbo. I mean, who will mind a little bit of turbocharge in the car? Dude. So that's the way I see it. Because if not, I've done it in the past where I'm the one that is always picking everybody up, and then that's drainful, And then if you actually want to be successful in anything that you do in life, yes, we all want to help, but sometimes you have to make sure that you have to be right, and then those around you have to have the same vision. Because if not, constantly you're gonna be able to just picking everybody up. And then everybody will stay at the same level, and then you won't actually be able to really make a difference in somebody's lives. And like you said, I didn't really have to make the comment to him, but something within me saw it, and my mind was working. I'm a very creative individual, so my mind, I'm thinking like, man, like this is amazing that he's here. I don't know him, but it's amazing that he's here, and I could just see the potential of how much bigger this could get. And now you have it on video. I mean, you interviewed me 3 years ago. I'll be eager to see what the interview looked like and what I sound like, what I look like. But what I can tell you is that my whole life from that interview that you did with me has changed. Ups and downs. You got to experience me being a little depressed after one of my losses. You reached out to me, and because of that, I believe that I made this reason happen to come over here to your place. So I feel very fortunate for that.
That's cool.
Now a little bit about me. One of my boxing coaches, his name is Luke Dan. He taught me something new, and this motto is very unique, guys. It is all about making magic. And a lot of people may think like magician or voodoo. No. Magic stands for making a great impression constantly. Because the first impression that you make on somebody, that is key. But can you imagine if every day you purpose yourself that today I'm going to make this great impression for the rest of your life. Every single day that you're alive will be different. So I like that. So I like to make magic. So you made magic on my life today. He made magic on my life today because you guys made a great impression from the way you greeted me, from the text, from showing that you care. And that's what we need, man. This sport of martial arts, we're not bar brawlers. We are martial artists. And it's not just about, hey, I'm going to be with you because you're getting ready to be on TV or getting ready for this fight. Nah, man. It's beyond that, and you guys are great individuals. And those are the people that I want in my life. Because I spent many years of my life with the wrong crowd, many years of my life being in different cities that um, possibly now I despite, but it's made me one way or another who I am now. And if it wasn't for that, I could have never been able to share my story with you guys. I'll be a hypocrite. And I'll be like, oh, I always had it good. No, no, no. Everybody, no matter what, if you are born in a wealthy family, everybody's got its own ups and downs because it's all about perception.
So take us back to, tell me a little bit about where you grew up, and if that little kid was able, what was that little kid able to believe about himself? Like, what were your biggest dreams when you were living out there?
Man, that little kid, or in Spanish, in Guatemala, we call him patojo, which is a slang word for like young kid. So that patojo, you know, back home, my biggest dream was to know what it felt like to have parents. My biggest dream was to reality experience what will be the hug of a mother. You know, every Mother's Day will come through, and I always wonder.
So,
you know.
so what exactly was your situation for?
Well, you know, my mom left me when I was like 3 months old.
Okay.
Came to the States. I stood with my grandparents, and I pretty much was raised by them. My grandmother died when I was 6. My grandfather died when I was 11. But my grandfather was able to give me my biggest gift, which was learning the martial art of Kempo Karate at 8. So he got to see a little bit of that. So after 11 years old, that was pretty much me on my own.
Now, so not having your mother, and your father wasn't in the picture
No,
either?
he was not.
And then losing your grandmother, like, so what did that do to you as far as like, I can't even imagine what that would do to a kid. Like, were you angry? Did you go inside? I mean,
man, there was a lot of mixed feelings, but I think that my grandfather did an amazing job of being the father, the mother, all of it. You know, he was a great individual, and he showed me nothing but respect and love. He never hit me, you know, like that old school Latino mentality. He always talked to me, and he communicated with me. So because of that, I respect him to death, and to this day, you know, he has been the human being that I love the most in my life. No disrespect to my mother and father.
Right.
As an adult, I know that things happen in life, and we're not perfect. I'm pretty sure they thought it was the best decision to make at that particular moment. But I still respect my parents, you know, even though I don't talk to my dad, or the relationship with my mom is very, you know, sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, but I have respect for them. So whoever that is watching this and listen to this, we're nobody to judge. So honor your father and your mother, you know, regardless of anything. But however, don't let anybody to become an emotional vampire. Because if you have achieved some type of success, and then now they want to, I don't know if the words leech off of it, might be too harsh, too ruthless, but it's the truth. You know, I mean, if you didn't help or whatever, then it is what it is. But that's another topic. But it is part of my it's part of my story. So I'm trying to be as blunt as possible, because somebody through that camera, through the screen, through the laptop, might be listening to me and be like, oh man, I can relate. No, this is real life. This is real stuff.
No, I think that's awesome. And what you were saying about why that the conversation is important for MMA. But man, what got me excited about Unlocking the Cage is, yes, I'm seeing all these awesome stories through MMA, all these martial artists. I was like, but now I want to share these with everyone else. I want to share it with all of these, I don't want to call them regular people, but like the non-martial artists, the non-fighters. Right. Because I think so many people look up to the idea of a fighter, and they think tough guy, they think, you know, this and that. But it's like, okay, well, these are the kind of conversations we're having, and this is the kind of respect we have for other people. And this is why I'm drawn to fighters, and this is why I appreciate you as a person. You know, it's not what I was just at the LA Times Festival of Books, and in Tucson I did the same thing where we were interviewing people, asking them their perception of MMA and what fighters are probably like. And you know, there were some knowledgeable people that had great answers, and then there's the, you know, kind of what I was expecting, like, oh, they're dumb and they're brutes and they're this and they're that. And it's like, well, you're wrong. You know, there are some of those people, but no, and that's why I'm excited about sharing this kind of stuff, sharing your story, and that's why I appreciate fighters that tell me everything, and it's like, and share the the stuff that it'd just be easier to forget about it, and that you kind of try to put behind.
Right.
But because you've been through these struggles, I think that's why your mindset is more powerful. I think you need to have gone through things like that to that really make you question. Like, let's talk about just. All right, since we talked, you had your fights. Talk about some of the injuries that you've had, and especially with the World Series of Fighting, like, and what that did to you mentally, and how you overcame that.
Man, just when you mention World Series of Fighting gives me like goosebumps. Nothing against the promotion, it's just a lot of mixed feelings. It was a dream come true, a great accomplishment. Walking you guys through the fight, imagine finding out that I was gonna fight for World Series of Fighting, and then I think a few days before finding out I was gonna be on the main card, which means that I was gonna be on TV.
And this is very early in your career.
Very early in my career.
You were
I've been a professional for, I think 3 years ago is when I became professional.
Okay.
And I already fought in 2 of the major, organizations. And for World Series of Fighting, early in my career to be, on the main card, that was huge. So yeah, we get to World Series of Fighting. 25 seconds into the fight, first inside leg kick, my knee gets fractured in half, and that was eye-opening right away. I didn't know what was gonna happen. I didn't know.
So when you take that kick, you feel something happen? Like, you know something's wrong with your leg?
No, I knew something was very wrong because the pain was it was a weird type of pain, but I knew that there was so much on the line, Mike. I mean, I couldn't just give up right there, And I'm pretty sure, at first people will be like, it was just a little kick.
Right.
But then when they would have found out that, it was a fracture, they would have been like, okay, he did the right thing. But at that time in the fight, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not an orthopedic surgeon, so I did not know if it was really fractured or me just being a little beep and then not taking the pain.
Yeah.
So I just decided to go through it, and I fought. And you saw me. I fought my butt off for 3 rounds, bloodied up, and I still kept my cool and gave a good show. Even gave thumbs up, for my mom on the camera on live TV. So that was good. But after the fight, we're talking about 3 months of having my leg immobilized. It was tough. Not being able to really work and stuff like that. So went through some dark times. I questioned myself, do I want to continue doing this? Is it worth it? And all these other things that I'm pretty sure you guys probably, have you ever been depressed or sad or just kept on seeing the negative? Because I wanted to find justifications of why he went this way.
Yeah. And how difficult was actually the loss? Like was that part of it? Was the depression because of your knee, or was it a combination of not only the knee, but then also
the knee? Because I think if it wasn't if he wasn't able to finish me on one leg, I think if I would have had both of my legs, it would have been a whole different story. Yeah, that's what I believe. But I already got past that. Much respect to my opponent. I mean, he wanted to fight just as much as I did.
Right.
So he did what I had to do. He was dealing with a beast. I wasn't gonna stop. So I purposed myself that I was just gonna finish the fight. But yes, it was a loss, but it was one of my biggest wins. But because of that, I earned a lot of people's respect.
Now, with the depression, were you thinking about not doing it? Because someone on the outside looking in, like, okay, yeah, why do this? You're not making a lot of money, and even if you're really hustling and you're getting sponsorship and everything else, you're putting in. I would say the average fighter puts in way more money into their career than they're gonna make. And so why do it? Why risk another injury like that? Why have to go through all that rehab? Like, why?
And what's more of a trip is that before the fracture of the knee, I fractured my hand. And that was another 4 months. So
and
all
your
along
foot
it was
too.
2
What
years.
did you do to your foot?
But that was my foot. I fractured my foot too. But that was like very early in my career, and the foot fracture, that's what changed my life. But we'll talk about that one in another episode, because if not, we're gonna lose track of this one.
yeah.
But I don't do this for the money. I mean, I'm gonna get paid for this upcoming fight, X amount of thousands of dollars or whatever, but that money is like for food and training, pretty much. At the level that I'm doing the things that I'm doing right now. If it was like before, eating fast food and not caring, it was all hard. But now actually we do everything as a professional. It's not for the money, but I found my purpose. I am in mixed martial arts today, or even still in sport, for this opportunity to meet people like you, Mark, to meet people like Coach Anthony, that you guys bring value to my life, and I'm motivating a lot of other people with my story. And you're a writer. This is not fiction. This is real life.
Yeah.
And then you're good. I admire and I respect you as an individual, and I thank you for being part of my journey. But this is real stuff. This is stuff that people can relate. This is not me being a millionaire and saying, "Oh yes, you can do it. Look, I made money. I came from the hood." No, this is me still struggling financially, but I still have the belief inside of me, and that belief to believe, like I shared with you.
So when did you start to get that belief? Where did that come from, and how much did that change your life?
Oh man, it changed it completely.
Like, did that come from someone? Like, or did you have that from a young kid? Like, when did that start to change? When did you start to have that as your new belief system?
I think when I moved to Vegas from LA, I was 18 years old.
And
31 right now.
Was fighting involved at all with that? What was that?
I think that the breaking point was basically where my mindset was, enough of this. There's something better in life. Like the neighborhood where I was living, everybody was hustling. Everybody was gangbanging. Everybody wanted the little young Guatemalan because he could head kick people on the head. And then I just said, you know what? There's something better. There's something completely different. And little by little, we don't all be born knowing. We gotta learn, right? So I started getting this from these people, this from these people, and I started putting it together. I started learning about energy. I started learning about visualization, law of attraction, getting a little bit onto religion, and mix them all together. And one of the things I learned is that you have to be true to yourself, but you don't have to commit to a specific group or religion or anything like that, because if not, you're excluding yourself from anything. And I think in your interview that you did many years back, I mentioned a little bit about that, because you asked me a similar question. A flashback is coming back to me right now. So I associate with all different sorts of people and everything. So, because there's something to learn. Like, there's some of the yoga moves that Coach Anthony taught me that I seen him done before, but he adds that little twist. Is that it factor? So some of the things that I'm sharing with you, even with the belief to belief system, and the way I share it, is maybe similar to what other people say. It's just that I have my own little spice to it,
No, I do, and I think if you live your life believing that you can learn something from every person that you meet, doesn't matter who it is. Like, if you could learn something from them or from that interaction, like, man, your life's gonna be awesome, because you're actively learning too, man, and you're looking for it, and you're appreciating these interactions.
But you know what I noticed what I've noticed along the way too, Mark? We tend to self-sabotage ourselves. And I don't know, I didn't go to school. This is just my life experiences. And if I'm utilizing the wrong terms, please correct me.
No, that's 100%.
People tend, even when they go, they're not open-minded, and they might think they know it all, and they walk into a new place, they're already looking for the negative in that individual. To either satisfy their ego and saying, I didn't have to learn shit about him. Right?
Yeah, what's he gonna teach me?
Yeah, what is he gonna teach me? That move right there was not done properly. But what about the 99 other things that this individual could have or did show you?
Yeah.
But you already self-sabotaged myself saying that. That thing, and then as you were mentioning, we tend to self-consciously be perfectionists. So we expect that our expectations that it has to be this way, and if it's not that way, that means that it's not beneficial for us. And I don't think that's true. So stop self-sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
This goes to a lot of individuals out there that I know are gonna see this, and you know who I'm talking to. I'm talking to you. To you in particular, I'm talking to you. But I'm talking to a lot of people in the game, and they agree. Yeah. You know what, Rudy? Thank you. I do self-sabotage.
Yeah.
Because it's so nice that when you know that something's gonna go sideways. When it does go sideways, it doesn't make you feel so bad because you know your ego, your you is not hurt, but you don't believe. But if somebody approaches you and somebody that you never know, you never talk to them, probably you know from social media, comes and tells you the truth and tells you something you already know, sometimes it could be hurtful and be like, oh shit, like what's going on here? This is something I'm not used to. So what do you mean I can definitely do on and reach out more? Oh no, I don't have the means. Oh, my phone sucks. Well, I don't got good service. Well, I don't drive the BMW. Well, I don't have this degree. Well, I don't write as good as him. Nah. F that. None of that. If I would have been thinking like that, even when I fractured my knee, when I fractured my foot, my hand, coming from a different country, not speaking the language, none of this would have been possible. And then right now, April 25th, I have the opportunity to be the first Guatemalan in history to be part of UFC Fight Pass. And this is my real story. So I feel proud of that.
That's awesome. Let's talk about that fight. About the organization. You were there last night. We were all there last night. Yeah. Talk a little bit about what you thought of it. I mean, pretty like exciting fights. I didn't see the last. I maybe missed the last 2 or 3, but everyone came to fight.
Yeah. One of the things that you could expect for Combate Americas is that most of the guys they're really coming to bang because they appreciate and they see the value that the promotion is put into showcase the Hispanic and Latino talent to give them an opportunity to get them closer to the goal, which is to fight in the UFC, or now since Combate Americas is doing on the road to the championship to become a Combate Americas champion, which right now, to be honest with you, the promotion is doing such a good job that doesn't have anything to envy to Bellator or World Series fighting.
Right.
The talent that they're recruiting, I mean, they're doing an amazing job, and I feel blessed to be considered and to be one of them. And I truly believe I've earned my spot, and now I have to go ahead and prove myself once again. I fought there before with a gentleman named Eric Sanchez from Team Alpha Male.
Okay.
But I took the fight in 10 months. A 9-day notice, 10 months without training. No, I mean, my choice. I proved what I was able to do, and now the promotion wants me back. And I'm putting this out there to the universe. I fight on Monday, win the fight on Monday, and call for the rematch. That's Eric awesome. Sanchez versus Morales, too. But this time I'll be in shape. Yeah. Anything can happen in a fight, though. But the more tools you bring into a war, the more chances that you have. So.
Now, you taking fights on very little notice, that's not the first time you did that.
No.
Now, do you feel like that's something you have to do, especially as a younger fighter or someone's early in their career, because just opportunities? You're going to have more opportunities if you make yourself available like that, or you just feel like, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be?
Well, the thing is that, early in my career, as a professional, it's only 3 years, but I've been doing amateur MMA since I was 22. So now it's almost 9 years into my career. So these are opportunities that I've been waiting for. And like I was sharing with you earlier, I got a tattoo that says life without risk is not life. And because of me taking those opportunities and believing in myself, I am where I am today. Because I could have easily said, I got to be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. For the most part, that's what stopped me from going pro for a long time.
Really?
I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. And right now for this camp, I've been focusing on what I envision happening. Other than the typical takedown defense. So I was like, man, I've been training takedown defense, putting out there what I don't want to happen. And that's exactly what's happened. So let me go ahead and switch it up a little bit and what I do want to happen. And we'll see. We'll see what happens on Monday. Yeah. So
no, I'm excited. We're going to be there. Anthony and I talked about this on the last one. It's hard watching people, fight, man. It's something I really don't like to do that often. But I'm also changing my mindset, and I'm seeing it as a competition. I'm not seeing it as a fight. I'm not seeing it as, and I just want fighters to know, man, my opinion and my respect for an individual has nothing to do with whether they win or lose a fight. I don't give a shit. I want you to win because I want great things for you. I want you to reach your dreams. I want all that. But as far as whatever, it's a sporting event where someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. sometimes I have a hard time with that. I had a very hard time with that for a long time. But after watching so many guys, and sometimes there'll be someone I interviewed versus another guy I interviewed, and I want both of them to win, and it's impossible. So, it's like as long as there's no one getting injured, but yeah, I always wish the best.
Well, Mark, look how much you won because of fighting.
Yeah.
Yourself, now unlocking the cage, became a good father, a good role model for all of us. I mean, you and me, we're probably like 2 years apart. I'm 31. You're like 33 years old. Just saying.
I just look.
And just like our conversation, you made me dream and had another vision. I'm like thinking, man, it'll be cool to actually be able to put these words on a book.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I was talking to you about it. And I'm like, who knows? And I'm bringing this up because that we could have some proof, memory, of when it was discussed, and it was just a dream.
Well, yeah, and I think it makes sense. It's something. Having fighters write their stories is something I've been doing with different fighters. Leslie Smith is one of my favorite fighters. Right. Like, she did it with me. I've done with different fighters. I see writing as just a powerful tool for the individual, and then the story that you're sharing, if it's done correctly, and then just going over your story. I was like, yeah, man, you could talk about this. We could write about this, and just seeing all the possibilities. So I'm excited about that, and because of what you've been through, where you are with your just who you are as a person. I think sharing that with other people, letting other people see that, I think that's what we need more of, man. Sometimes I look at society and I have a really hard time. I could get really negative. I can see the worst in people. Right. But I think if
we all do it. Yeah.
If we show other people, like this place, man, this place is happiness. When you're in here, you look at any of the kids, kids are smiling. It's awesome. Our head coach John he's awesome. This is his passion. Anthony's one of the coaches here. He's awesome. Everyone's happy here. And then we just get more and more people coming in because they see that's what people want. People want that. Yeah. You have that. You're sharing that. When you can help other people believe in themselves, you help me believe in myself. You helped Anthony crazy today. That was awesome.
Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ruthless Morales. My Instagram is at Ruthless Morales as well. Facebook will be Rudy Ruthless Morales. And I don't know. I've been thinking Snapchat. Like I said, I've just been using it just to follow certain people, whatever. But I think I'm gonna have to open up Snapchat for
why not?
For the public, because through Snapchat, a lot of people, they'll be able to ask questions and see you and actually see moments like this. Because a lot of people just put, look what I'm eating. No, look what I learned today.
That's cool.
Look what I'm thinking, and you get reminded. You know what I mean? It's a good outlet. So Snapchat is at Ruthless Morales. So everything is at Ruthless Morales.
That's awesome.
And I'm over here with my boy. You guys don't know him. I just learned this today. I'm pretty sure he probably told me 3 years ago. Professional MMA fighter right here.
Not a very good one though.
No, it's
but I tried.
You see what I'm saying? Look, listen to his words though.
Yeah.
To somebody in Guatemala, in Mexico, he's probably one of the best. But to himself, the level of expectation, it's like, oh, we didn't meet it, and then that's him. Yeah. And because of that, I accept what does that say? They say the light in me recognizes the light in you.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
Yes or no?
Yeah.
Right? So then recognize your own light because I'm your light. Yeah. Yes or no, Mark? And this is no BS because it's recording. This is the truth, right? So
that's cool.
In Mayan language, we have something similar, but it's in la kech a la king, and it's like it's kind of like I think it kind of translates like that. That in me I see another you. Mm. You see what I mean?
Yeah. No, that's cool, man. That's what.
That's what it's about. And like I told you, this is not BSing you, Mark. It's just stuff that you learn along the road. When I was living in South Central LA, do you think I would speak like this?
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Not at all. You know what my mentality was? My mentality, they changed because we give meaning to anything because you learned it. Mm-hmm. One of my mentors, his name is David, 73 years old. He's my business mentor, my spiritual mentor. He's the closest thing that I have right now to like a grandpa or whatever because I don't have family. He put the example that you and me we're in front of a table and there's a gun on the table, right? You've never seen a gun. I have. So I know what a gun is for. Mm-hmm. Could either go for hunting, shooting, hurting, killing, whatever, right? could be something positive, something negative. You could see your life, or you could take someone's life. But for you, you never seen a gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for you, it's just gonna be an awkward-looking piece of metal
Mm-hmm.
because you have no meaning to it. Like you never learned that meaning. So what he has taught me is to like change everything around you and stop giving it the meaning that somebody taught you. You give it your own.
Right.
So even if that person used to be a piece of shit person, but now he's doing his best,
Yeah.
then honor him for who
For
he
this
is in the
moment.
now.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah, I believe so. And I told, dude, I was so negative my entire life. I was suicidal my entire life.
Yeah.
You know, and all this stuff.
But
And,
don't we do that?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I've lost fights where I trained my ass off. And just because before coming out to the fight, this one negative moment of doubt,
Mm-hmm.
and when I'm inside the cage, I'm trying to get myself back in. It was
Yeah.
already too late. Because I believe my own bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Stop believing your bullshit. You know what I mean? Stop self-sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
Stop that shit. Because remember, and we'll see if he pays attention, because I got nothing but fucking respect to him. Mark,
Yeah.
whose day is it today?
My day.
There you go.
Our day.
Today is our day.
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome.
I gotta
Listen
go.
to Rudy. Thank you
God
so much
bless
for
you guys.
joining us.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Forgot to mention at the end of every episode, because I am starting to have belief in myself, I share my stories. I think part of me hesitating on that was I was like, the MMA fans want to hear about fiction. Do fiction fans want to hear about fighting? But I was like, no, it's part of my life. It's a big part of my life. I love writing. This one is from Twisted Reunion. The story is called Reunion, and it's a story that almost didn't happen, but I gave it to an early reader, Chris Nicholson. Trusted her. She's reviewed all my stuff, loves all my stuff. I had her read a couple other stories. She read Reunion and told me she didn't want to hurt my feelings, but it just wasn't that good. You know, it just kind of predictable and this and that. And I was like, she's right. I had to look at it. I was like, she's right. You know, we get defensive. We want to say, our shit's good. And so I took the time and I rewrote it, and now it's nice and twisted. And that was one of the stories that, so it's called Twisted Reunion. This short story is Reunion. I hope you guys enjoy it. Here it is.
Reunion. Derek sensed the moment was right, leaned in for a kiss, hating himself as he did it. Beth wasn't ugly. She didn't stink if you disregarded the cheap wine. But he had no desire to kiss her. He just needed her to stay. For that, he needed her to feel wanted. It was already after 11 and way too late to find a replacement. Beth welcomed his advance. Derek matched her intensity and pressed himself against her. As passionately as he could feign, tried to ignore her fat tongue jabbing in his mouth. Finally, Derek backed off from the kiss and grinned. Wow, I wanted to do that all night. Sorry if it was too much. She ran her fingers through her bleached blonde hair. Her cheeks flushed. Are you kidding? That was perfect. She tugged down her shirt to hide the little roll of her tummy. Just like old times. Derek looked around his mother's outdated living room. He said, 10 years. Feels like nothing's changed. They were sitting on the same couch where he and Beth had had their first heavy petting session when they were juniors in high school. None of the old furniture had been upgraded. None of the pieces had moved since he was a kid. The pictures on the mantel and walls were untouched. A lot of things had changed in 10 years, but not this house. His mother seemed stuck in the past, refusing to change anything, especially Ronnie's room. His brother's room was precisely as it had been on the day he disappeared. Nothing had been moved, not even the poster of a half-naked Cindy Crawford above the bed, the one their mother had said made the place look like some nasty frat house. The most significant thing that had changed in this room was Beth, the girl Derek needed to convince to stay the night. She was a little heavier, but so was he. She was still bone white, and her years of partying were peeking out from behind the layers of makeup. She'd lost some of her shitty attitude, the insecurity. She had matured. Beth cleared her throat, interrupting his thoughts. This isn't your first time back, is it? Derek shook his head. I come back once a year to house sit when Mom visits her sister in Philly. I'd rather not do it, but she refuses to let a stranger stay here. She won't go otherwise. What about your dad? He split a year after Ronnie. You see him at all? Derek shook his head. The coward didn't even leave a note. Beth rubbed his arm and said, I'm so sorry. It's fine, he said. It's just not something we talk about. Mom wanted me to keep it quiet. Wait a minute. Beth pulled away a little. You've been back every year, and now, out of the blue, you decide to call me? If Derek hadn't been expecting the question, he might have answered honestly. He might have told her that she wasn't his first choice, but all of his other old girlfriends were gone. He'd run through each one on nights just like this. It's hard to explain. He pretended to be embarrassed, took a quick swig of the wine he'd picked up at 7-Eleven. It's just that with you, I was always afraid to call. I thought about you all the time, but I was so sure you would laugh at me and tell me to get a life. I know it sounds corny, but even though I never called you, I always had the dream of you sitting right here. He ran his fingers over her thigh. Oh, she said in her whiny little voice that still irritated the hell out of him. Another thing that hadn't changed. That's so sweet. You shouldn't have worried, though. I'm thrilled you called. She slid up against him for a smothering hug. I couldn't wait to come over. He was grateful. It wasn't like he could tell any of his old friends the real reason he wanted their company. If he told anyone why he needed them to stay, he knew they'd laugh. He was 27 years old, way too old to be afraid of a house, of a room, of Ronnie's room. The thought sent shivers up his spine. Beth mistook the spasm for one of pleasure. Oh, you like that, huh? She ran her fingertips across the nape of his neck. Thought I didn't remember? Derek had never liked it. In fact, he hated it. But he couldn't tell her that. Even though she was dressed sort of sleazy, in a good way, this was by no means a sealed deal. Now was not the time to speak his mind. Instead, he snuggled closer. Just a sec, Beth said as she turned to the oversized purse that had yet to leave her sight. She took out her phone and swiped it on. You expecting a call? I'm afraid the service in this house is terrible. I've got one bar, but I was just checking the time. It's almost 11:30. It's getting kind of late. Derek's heart almost stopped. His mind raced as he tried to think of a way to convince her to stay. He'd shed tears if he had to, but he hoped it wouldn't come to that. Maybe he had misjudged her. Maybe she had developed some morals over the last decade. Maybe she was still sore over the way he had dumped her the week before prom. Before Derek could come up with anything to say, Beth said, You wouldn't mind if I took a quick shower, would you? I had a long day, and I came over right after work. Of course not. Do you have somewhere to go? Beth slipped the phone into her purse and played with her hair. I was hoping your bedroom, but if you don't want me, I can go home. No, he said. I just didn't think that you would. We're both adults, right? And I figured that's why you called. It is, isn't it? He hesitated briefly. Yeah, I mean, sort of. But I guess I didn't think you would really want to. Are you kidding? That was the best thing about us. I mean, you were always kind of, don't take this the wrong way, a little weird, but you were amazing in bed. Oh, really? Yeah. And I also know, even though you would never admit it to anyone, it must be real hard for you to be here. All those memories. Look, I don't want to ruin the mood, but you never did find out what happened to your brother, did you? Derek shook his head, wished the conversation hadn't taken this turn. He finished his wine and set the empty glass on the coffee table. Ronnie didn't run away like people think. He just disappeared. There was no forced entry, but I know he would never let anybody in the house. You were home, huh? We all were. We didn't hear a thing. It was something with that room. As he said it, he wondered just how much he should be admitting to. You don't believe that? I do. Beth laughed, which made him feel small and angry. He was a kid, she said. I remember he used to say there was something under his bed, but you never believed him. Please tell me you don't know. Derek forced a smile. Of course not. It was a joke. He pulled her by the waist, his thumbs lightly pressing on her tummy, knowing it made her self-conscious. We have to sleep in his room, and I guess I wanted to freak you out a little so you'd get that much closer. Very funny. No, seriously, it's either in there or on this couch. Mom locks her room whenever she's gone, and mine was turned into a study 9 years ago. He told the lie easily, knowing his mother hadn't changed anything in his room either. She never stepped foot in it. Really? I didn't know. Derek leaned in and whispered, I'll protect you. Beth laughed, because his breath was tickling her. Well, if you don't have a problem being in there, then I definitely don't. She ran her finger down his chest. We'll need more room than this couch. That settles it. Derek got up and filled Beth's wine glass, told her to relax. Just give me a minute to clean up. I'll get the water nice and warm for you. Beth said, You're so sweet. But it sounded fake, sort of like she was making fun of him. Derek didn't care. He hurried to the hallway. He was hit with the smell of red roses that sat on the console table beside the door of his old room. Then there was the second vase on the bathroom counter. But there was another smell underneath the aroma of roses. Derek turned on the shower and covered the room with orange-scented air freshener. The bathtub was clean enough, but there was a filthy rag and toothbrush inside the wastebasket. Derek tore off several streams of toilet paper and tossed them on top of it. The mirror was starting to steam up. He went back and told Beth the shower was ready, that he'd wait for her in the bedroom. Beth grabbed her purse and disappeared down the hallway. Derek refilled Beth's wine glass, wondered how much she could drink. This was going to run a lot smoother than he had hoped. Derek turned off the lights. The bathroom door was closed, slivers of lights outlining the frame. As a matter of habit, Derek moved to his left and made sure his bedroom door was locked. He arranged the roses and walked to the opposite end of the hall, snuck a quick glance into his mother's room just to make sure it was empty, locked it so he didn't look like a liar. Derek paused outside of Ronnie's door, his hand frozen over the knob. Derek told himself to hurry up and get inside the room. What would Beth say if she came out of the bedroom and saw him standing there like a scared little boy? There was nothing in that room that would harm him. Sure, the memories hurt. But he'd slept in that room one night a year for 10 years, and he'd awakened just fine. Tonight would be no different. He turned the knob and pushed open the door. The room was pitch black. Derek felt along the wall and flicked the switch. The overhead light didn't come on. His mother had asked him to change the bulbs, not knowing all she needed to do was screw them in more tightly. The dim light from the hallway barely penetrated the inky blackness. Derek waited for his eyes to adjust. He saw the outline of Ronnie's bed, the one his brother swore had a monster under it. No one ever believed Ronnie. His mother didn't. Derek didn't. Then Ronnie was gone. Derek set Beth's drink on the nightstand, mixed in a little powder from the plastic baggie to help her relax. He turned the table lamp to its lowest setting and looked around the room. Although his mother hadn't changed a single object since the night Ronnie disappeared, she'd cleaned it every week. 10 years of vacuuming and dusting had left this room feeling like a movie set. The lamplight reflected off the trophy-filled bookcase. Less than a year before he vanished, Ronnie had led the baseball team to the state finals. Every player got a championship ring, which was the only thing missing from the room. The ring couldn't have cost more than $10 to make, but it was priceless to Ronnie. Derek smiled, remembering how Ronnie polished the fake ruby every morning. He refused to take it off, even in the bath. Derek felt tears forming, slapped himself to make him stop. He had to man up before Beth came back. He had to check under the bed for the monster. Keeping an eye on the dust ruffle that skimmed the wooden floor, Derek untied his shoes and slipped them off. The shower stopped and he walked over to the doorway, his feet sliding along the hardwood, barely making a sound. Derek called Beth's name, and she asked what he wanted. "Your wine's next to the bed. Make yourself comfortable. I've got to grab something from outside real quick." "Sure thing. I'll be out in a minute." Before he chickened out, Derek knelt down beside the bed and raised the dust ruffle. There was nothing underneath. Derek rubbed his face against the inside of the ruffle and inhaled deeply, the mustiness taking him back all those years. The bathroom door opened, and Derek slid under the bed, made sure his entire body was hidden. It was too dark to see anything, but he could feel he was directly lined up with the middle of the mattress. Beth's feet slapped off the wooden hallway. He was going to scare the hell out of her, make her sorry for ever teasing him. Derek ran his thumb across the beam directly above his head. He felt the 9 razor-thin nicks carved in it. The beam above his chest had dozens more. The footsteps stopped at the doorway. Beth said, "Derek, you back?" Derek felt further along the beam until it touched the leather mask folded on top of it. He rubbed the mask on his cheek, slipped it over his head. He carefully gripped the razor blade that had been beside it. She called Derek's name once more, but he didn't answer. He took the razor and ran it across the wood next to last year's cut. Jasmine. When Beth walked over to the bed, Derek quietly eased the blade back where it belonged. Beth sat down, her stumbly ankles not far from his shoes. Derek rolled onto his side, his shoulder pressed into the beam. He could grab both her legs and send her screaming, but that'd be pointless. He needed her. She had to tell him he wasn't a monster. Ronnie was wrong. Derek rolled onto his back when Beth brought both feet up and moved toward the middle of the bed, bringing the beams a little bit lower. He ran his thumb across the 10 little lines, and his mind returned to the night before they had existed. Ronnie had been acting a little weird all that day, had called Derek back to his room, had said that he wanted to show him something. It was 10 o'clock. Dad was blacked out on the couch. Mom dazed in front of the blaring television. Derek stopped in front of the doorway, asked Ronnie what was happening. Ronnie stood at the dresser, kept his back to Derek and the bed. "I got something to show you." Ronnie sounded strange, almost like slow motion. "Want to see it?" Derek was suddenly afraid to say yes. "What is it?" Ronnie turned around nearly as slowly as he talked, kept a hand on the dresser to hold himself up. He opened his left hand, revealed the orange pill bottle. "What are you doing with those? Are those Mom's?" It took Ronnie a few seconds to swallow. He nodded yes. "Ronnie, did you take any?" The bed creaked, and Beth shouted Derek's name, yanked him out of the memory. "Where are you?" She was getting too antsy too soon. Maybe she knew Ronnie had been right. Derek brought his hand to the beam with the scratches, all the nights he'd spent under the bed. He ran his finger across the top of the beam until he touched the bottle of nasal spray that was wedged there. "Come on, man," she said under her breath. The bed shifted to the right, the wine glass clicking on the table. "I tell him I want him to fuck and he goes and does chores," she said to herself. Derek brought the fentanyl spray under his nose, the scent intoxicating. With his other hand, he undid his belt buckle. "Ew," Beth said, the glass clinking on the table and the bed shifted. Beth's weight directly above him, the wooden beams low enough to lick. There was no way to know how much of the wine she'd had. Maybe he'd added too much of the powder. Derek prepared to slip out from the left side of the bed in case Beth ran. She didn't move, so Derek waited, his mind flying back to 10 years ago. Ronnie was swaying at the dresser, the orange bottle in his hand. Derek had hoped Ronnie was acting, just trying to get attention. Did you... He trailed off. How many? Ronnie tossed the bottle and it bounced under the bed. She hadn't opened it. Derek dove under the mattress, shook the empty bottle, read the label. 30 pills. Ronnie collapsed, his face smushed into the floor, a foot from Derek. Talking through half his mouth, he said, I know it was you. You're the monster. The bed creaked to the right, ripped Derek back to reality. The lamp clicked to the high setting, lighting the other side of the ruffle. Last chance, Derek. I'm not waiting all night. She sounded a little scared, but not at all sleepy. If Beth had drunk the whole glass, she'd be passed out. The house sat on 15 acres and was surrounded by trees. Derek wasn't worried about Beth's screams. He rubbed the tip of the inhaler along the bottom of his nose. He stroked himself and let out the softest, Derek? Is that you? It sounded like she clicked open her purse. Derek had to assume she pulled out her phone. Playtime was over. It was time to ask Beth the same thing he'd asked his father, all the girls that had spent the night. But first, Derek pulled the lamp's plug, cast the room into darkness. Beth screamed, and Derek slipped out from beneath the bed. She was backed against the headboard, hands out in front of her. Derek reached out for her face and readied the spray. He asked, Am I a monster? Beth roared as a stream of liquid hit Derek's chest, neck, the bottom of his mask. He raised his hand to block his eyes, but the stream kept coming, splashing off his forearm, getting in his mouth. Everything burned at once, his lips, his mouth, his eyes all stinging, snot pouring from his nose. Derek ripped off the mask, screamed when the pepper spray nailed him in both eyes. Derek grabbed where Beth had last been. He couldn't breathe. From out of nowhere, Beth slammed into his chest, sent him reeling into the bookcase. Trophies toppled onto his head and shoulders. Derek dropped to his knees. Beth was still in the room, but he couldn't tell where, so he just lunged forward and threw out his arms, his hand slapping off her leg. She screamed and kicked, her foot crunching his fingers, knocking the fentanyl across the room. Derek forced his eyes halfway open, saw Beth scramble to her feet and make it to the door. He couldn't let her escape. Beth was coughing in the hallway, and it sounded like she'd bumped into the wall. Derek got to his feet, forced one eye open, blew strings of snot down his lips and chin. A doorknob rattled. Derek saw Beth, her right hand feeling for the living room doorway. Derek said, "You can't leave." Beth screamed, ran full speed past the living room, toward Derek's old room, the vase of roses smashing on the floor. Derek ran after her. "No, the monster's in there." The cheap lock did nothing. Beth stumbled into the room, the door bouncing closed behind her. There was a huge clatter, then a crash, Beth grunting like she'd been punched in the gut. Derek pushed the door open, flicked on the light. Jasmine's still damp bones were scattered all over the floor, no longer laid out where Derek could easily assemble her. He'd spent all day digging her out of the backyard and scrubbing her clean. But that wasn't why Derek stood frozen. He was afraid to make a move for Beth, who had crashed on the bed, her shoulder buried in his father's ribs, her face pressed into the moldy mess on the sheets. Derek shrieked, "Get off him!" Beth pushed with her free hand, screaming when she saw what she was inside. Her arm ripped out of the bones, cracking a few. The sternum splintered and landed next to Ronnie's skeleton on the recliner, his ruby red ring pointing right at her. "Stop! Stop!" Derek pled, not sure if the tears were real or from the pepper spray. Through half-opened eyes, he sidestepped between Elise and Paula, who sat cross-legged, their skeletons taped to stakes driven through the floorboard. Beth batted at her blouse and side of her face. She looked for an escape. Ronnie and the circle of 7, all forever facing the bed, keeping the monster on top of it. Help! Help! He has to be on the bed. Beth stopped at the panic in his voice. She closed her eyes and pushed the father's skull. It popped off the bed. Derek wailed, a sound he'd heard but never made. You can't! Beth's voice trembled with fear. She begged him to let her go. She saw what he was going to do, dove to stop her, but was too slow. Beth kicked down on his father's hips, knocked his lower half off the bed. It crashed down in front of Derek, the brittle bones crumbling on the hardwood. The monster was no more. Beth backed off the other side of the bed and ripped off Ronnie's arm, sent the rest of him to the floor. She held his arm like a club, swore she'd fucking kill Derek if he took another step. It was time to start acting like the man of the house. Derek laughed at Beth and pointed at the pile of dust and bits of bone by his feet. You can't hurt me. Beth took a step toward the doorway, the bone held high, aimed at Derek's head. I'll kill you. Derek lunged and Beth swung. The round end of Ronnie's arm clipped the side of Derek's skull, shattering both. Derek lost all feeling and smashed onto the floor. A pool of red spread out before him, the edge flowing farther and farther from his face.